you all happy, healthy and prosperous New Year. In the previous class, we had studied about some of the environmental issues such as greenhouse effects, global warming, ozone depletion, and also we had studied about plant indicators. Then we studied about that forestry. In that agroforestry, social forestry, its benefits and its major activities. Today, let's learn deforestation, afforestation, invasive species, biodiversity conservation and endemic plants.
Deforestation. Cutting down of trees or the conversion of forested area into non-forested area is known as deforestation. Forest provides benefits including goods such as timber, paper, medicine and industrial products. The causes are the conversion of forest into agricultural plantation and livestock is a major cause of deforestation. Logging for timber, developmental activities like road construction, electric tower lines and dams, overpopulation, industrialization, urbanization and increased global needs. Effects of deforestation. Burning of forests would release stored carbon, a negative impact just opposite of carbon sequestration, that is carbon separation. And also removal of forest cover increases soil erosion and decreases soil fertility. Deforestation in dry areas leads to formation of deserts. It triggers adverse climatic conditions and alter water cycle in ecosystem. It decreases the biodiversity significantly as their habitats are disturbed and disruption of natural cycles. Loss of livelihood for forest dwellers and rural people. Increase global warming and account for 1/3 of total carbon dioxide emission. Loss of life support resources, fuel, medicinal herbs and wild edible fruits. These are the effects of deforestation. Next one is afforestation. Afforestation is planting of trees where there was no previous tree coverage. Objectives of afforestation. To increase forest cover, planting more trees increases oxygen production and air quality. Rehabilitation of degraded forests to increase carbon fixation and reducing carbon dioxide from atmosphere. Raising bamboo plantations. Because bamboo absorb carbon dioxide, produce oxygen, control soil erosion, etc. Mixed plantations of minor forests produce and medicinal plants. Regeneration of indigenous herbs or shrubs. What it be indigenous? Indian or native varieties. Awareness creation, monitoring and evaluation to increase the level and availability of water table or groundwater and also to reduce nitrogen contamination of drinking water and nature-aided artificial regeneration. Achievements of afforestation. Degraded forests were restored. Community assist like overhead tanks, borewells, hand pumps, community halls, libraries, etc. were established. Environmental and ecological stability was maintained. Conserved biodiversity, wildlife and genetic resources. Involvement of community, especially women in forest management. Example, Chipko and Apico movement of forest conservation. For a given one case study regarding afforestation. Jadev Moli Poyang, he was born in 1963. He is an environmental activities, has single-handedly planted a forest in the middle of a barren wasteland. This forest man of India has transformed the world's largest river island, Majuli, located on one of the India's major rivers, the Brahmaputra, into a dense forest that is the home for rhinos, deers, elephant, tigers and birds. and today his forest is larger than Central Park. Former Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Sudhir Kumar Sopre, named Jadev Poyang as Forest Man of India in the month of October 2013. In 2015, he was honored with Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award in India. He received honorary doctorate degree from Assam Agricultural University and Kaziranga University for his contributions. Now let's discuss alien invasive species. What is invasive species? A non-native species to the ecosystem or country under consideration that spreads naturally, interferes with the ecology and existence of native species, poses a serious threat to the ecosystem and cause economic loss. These invasive species are fast growing and are more adapted, and also it affects soil community, soil fauna and the ecosystem processes. Some of the alien species are Eichhornia crassipes and Proposis juliflora. Eichhornia crassipes, it is an invasive weed native to South America. It was introduced as aquatic ornamental plant which grows faster throughout the year. Its widespread growth is a major cause of biodiversity loss worldwide. It affects the growth of phytoplanktons and finally changing the aquatic ecosystem. It also decreases the oxygen content of the water bodies, which leads to eutrophication. It poses a threat to human health because it creates a breeding habitat for disease causing mosquitoes, particularly Anopheles mosquito. It also blocks sunlight entering deep into the water. Another one example, Prosopis juliflora, that is also an invasive species native to Mexico and South America. It was first introduced in Gujarat to counter desertification and later on in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu as a source of firewood. It is an aggressive colonizer and as a consequence the habitats are rapidly covered by this species. Its invasion reduced the cover of native medicinal herbaceous species. It is used to arrest wind erosion and stabilize sand dunes on coastal and desert areas. It can absorb hazardous chemicals from soil and it is the main source of charcoal. These are all about alien invasive species. Next topic is conservation. India, due to its topography, geology and climate patterns, have diverse life forms. Now this huge diversity is under threat due to many environmental issues. For this, conservation becomes an important tool by which we can reduce many species getting lost from our native land. By employing conservation management strategies like germplasm conservation, in situ, ex situ, in vitro methods, the endemic as well as threatened species can be protected. Biodiversity conservation can be classified into two, in situ and ex situ conservation. In situ conservation includes protected area network. That is two types, community protected and government protected. In community protected, that is sacred groves and sacred lakes. Then government protected areas, that is biosphere reserves, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. The biosphere reserves may be terrestrial or marine. Ex situ conservation includes sacred plants and home gardens, seed banks, pollen banks, field gene and cryopreservation. Cryopreservation is the process by which plant tissues, organs or organelles can be stored at very low temperature of -196 degrees centigrade using liquid nitrogen. That already we had studied in lesson 5, plant tissue culture, isn't it? Then botanical gardens, zoological park and aquaria. What in by in situ conservation? In situ conservation and management of genetic resource in their natural habitats. This is carried out by the community or by the state conservation, which include wildlife, national park and biosphere reserves. Megamalai, Satyamangalam Wildlife, Gindi and Periyar National Park and Western Ghats, Nilgiris, Agasthyarmalai and Gulf of Mannar are some of the biosphere reserves of Tamil Nadu. So what in by ex situ conservation? There is the method of conservation where species are protected outside their natural environment. This includes establishment of botanical gardens, zoological parks and conservation strategies such as gene, pollen and seed bank. These facilities not only provide housing and care for endangered species but also have educational and recreational values for the society. Some community level also participating in the conservation of our environment. For example, Chipko movement. The tribal women of Himalayas protested against the exploitation of forest in 1972. Later on it transformed into Chipko movement by Sundarlal Baguna in Mandal village of Chamoli district in 1974. People protested by hugging trees together which were felled by Sports Good Company. Main features of Chipko movement were this movement remained non-political. It was a voluntary movement based on Gandhian thought. It was concerned with the ecological balance of nature. Main aim of Chipko movement was to give a slogan of 5 F's: food, fodder, fuel, fiber and fertilizer, to make the communities self-sufficient in all their basic needs. Another one example, Apiko movement. The famous Chipko Andolan, that is movement of Uttarakhand in the Himalayas, inspired the villages of Uttar Karnataka to launch a similar movement to save their forest. This movement started in Gubbigadi, a small village near Sirsi in Karnataka by Panduranga head. This movement started to protest against felling of trees, monoculture forest policy and deforestation. Next one is endemic centers and endemic plants. Endemic species are plants and animals that exist only in one geographic region. Species can be endemic to large or small areas of the earth. Some are endemic to a particular continent, some to a part of a continent and others to a single island. There are 3 mega centers of endemism and 27 microendemic centers in India. Some examples for endemic plants: Bacteria cortalensis, Agasthyarmalea horsiflora, Hardwickia bainata, Bendinkia candapana, Nepenthes hacinia. Let's conclude the session. So far we discussed deforestation and its effects, afforestation, its objectives and achievements, invasive species, biodiversity conservation and endemic plants. Thank you students.